Okay, we thank you, Heavenly Father, for allowing us to meet here this evening. Please open up our minds and our hearts to this law. Because all of the law is your law, we ask this through your Son, Yeshua. Do we have any announcements? Okay. It's up to you, Jeff.
Lee, do you want to tell the people what we were up to this weekend, or briefly? Not you. Nope, didn't say a thing.
No, not me.
Okay. Well, I'll be brave enough. Just to let everybody know that Lee Bernasek and I got a chance to go out this past Saturday and do a private meeting with some people up in the Canada area. And Lee and I really want to thank those people up there. They were very, very kind hosts. Just a gracious audience and great people, particularly Bill and Ann, just sweethearts. They were excellent hosts. And the whole group up there, I'm not trying to spite any of them. The gentleman that did all the recordings and everything, a number of people that came up to us and gave us encouragement to continue the Monday nights and doing what we're doing. So I really just wanted to say thank you to them. We got our little gifts of calendars. My wife's already figured out what she's doing with hers. That was my little gift to her. As I came home, I had to give her something. And then they also gave both Lee and I a box of candy and to give our wives or whatever. And Lee promptly announced on the way home that his wife didn't like candy. So Lee and I immediately took care of that box. And by the time I went in the door, my wife, on the other hand, likes candy. And when she saw the candy, she didn't even miss the fact that I was gone for that day. So anyway, once again, thank you so much to that whole wonderful group that's up in Canada. And we wish them very well in what they're doing, and hopefully you'll see them again soon. Yeah, John.
You mean to tell me you got past the border this time to Canada, Jack?
Yeah, actually, see, about 3 years ago, Canada made me an outlaw. I couldn't go there anymore, just like the guy in Indiana. He couldn't go back to Indiana no more. But that was up after 1 year, and I've been on my best behavior. So actually, Lee and I told them we were going gambling up there, and they saw dollar signs in someone's eyes. And if you tell them at the border you've come to spend money in their country, they'll let you in a heartbeat. So
we know that Caleb wasn't with us, so there was no argument at the border.
We agreed with everything they said.
I just want to repeat that, but the group that we were before was, over 50 people?
Yeah.
Only because they had arranged the room in such that that was the number, and it was done like a cabaret. They had the tables, individual tables. Everybody had like 5 people.
Like a dining room set up.
Dining room set up. So they made it that way. But if we do this again, they probably said they'd easily double that number and just set it up differently. The questions they had and the direction they were taking indicated that what we were providing wasn't not only going to be used just because somebody has a problem in law, but they saw some value to this just in using it from day to day. So they have been hearing these Monday night tapes and are a subscriber to them. They digitize them, they put them on CDs, and they distribute, and it's amazing what's happening. So that's sort of like if you're coming up to the mic, you're going international. So,
Don't tell Bob that. He'll be at the mic
no
all the
more
time.
Canadian jokes, please.
You hear that, Bob?
See that, Bob?
Hey,
no Canadian jokes.
You hear that?
Bob, what's that?
It's all right to... Parma jokes are okay, but no more Canadian jokes. And the event was recorded and very professionally done. So I think we'll find out what it will be if anybody wants to hear that presentation. That we'll see what we have to do to make that available. Genesis through...
not quite to Revelation. I think we only got to about Joshua.
That's
we ran
about,
out of
yeah,
time.
Yes, but it was from the beginning, because the group was from the beginning, and we took it all the way through, including the acceptance and the process of acceptance all the way through, and examples. So if somebody needs a review from the beginning all the way through acceptance, it would be an excellent opportunity to have that in one sitting.
I covered the 4 categories that people fall into that we've done here at this meeting, but it's nice to have that in maybe a more formal presentation, which is what we did. The reason for that being at our Monday night meeting, we're all over the place and things get disjunct, cut apart, don't have a big picture in mind. After I covered the 4 categories, we covered taxation, the foundation of taxes in money and debt, the concept of de facto de jure money, how it comes in through Scripture and applies over to the civil world. After lunch, Lee presented a packet of paperwork which he has pretty much had at the Monday night meeting, at least in fuller in parts over several sections on protest definitions, forms, and that's pretty much what we covered when he presented his material on protest. As far as forms and definitions, I came back and worked that into the theory of how it applies. So we did cover an awful lot of material. So, yes, Bob?
This is getting away from the matter at hand, but I looked at TV here the other day and ran across a very interesting subject. They talked to the Hudson River and how it was polluted. And one thing I didn't know, that the Hudson River rises and falls with the tide of the ocean. But the interesting thing that came up, one of the Kennedys got in on it, and the government wouldn't step forward to, make the industry and everybody else clean up the river. And somebody came along and found an old law that we could force the business and anybody that was polluting the river to sue them and clean it up. And that's the only reason why I'm bringing it up right now. It was because of the law that was found. Some old mariner, I think it was, or some old timer came up with it, and they investigated it, and they've sued quite a few people on that 350-mile strip of river. It seems that the government would not do it; they did it themselves. They got together and went that way. I just thought that was the interesting part of the whole subject, why I brought it up.
Okay.
Well, I don't know whether they're clean. Well, maybe it's there now, but they've been doing that for. They were doing that, but this was private citizens going out and finding out where the point of pollution was at, and then they got together and sued the people. Where the factories or whoever it was, they either had to fix it or go out of business or do whatever it was. But they've I can't remember how many people that they've gone after and made. But this happened to be a law that was way back when, and maybe in the 1800s for all I know. Well, I don't have the Clean Air Act, but they were using. Go to the library. I got to learn how to read before I do that. Shut up, Tom.
Yes.
It's true. The Albany, New York newspapers and Pittsfield, Massachusetts are fighting the heavy pollution up there from the General Electric plants. I used to work with General Electric. They treated me good, so I'm just telling you that. There's still an ongoing problem. But back to Canada. Today a guy called, very articulate, to Alex Jones' program, and he articulated how the RCMP did a raid on some people up there. And my question is, in French law, you have Quebec. In French law, you read books about it in English, that the French do judge a case on the substance and not procedure. They make that distinction. You would think that theoretically you should be much more freer in Quebec as opposed to the rest of Canada or the United States.
I don't know what your books are telling you. How can anybody judge anybody on the law when they're in a bankruptcy and they can't execute pursuant to law? But understand this, equity is founded on substance, and so they both come into play. But to just state that, or to state the presumption that their courts are operating differently in this world situation today, I don't believe is true. The French have a different basis of the background of their form of law, at least in terms of where they found it, but I don't think in reality in the modern world there's much difference in terms of the application of substance and procedure. I think it's pretty universal. They may go back to a different set of rules or different presumptions, but in substance and form I think they're going to be quite parallel.
It's in one of those movies, a court case that's in France, in Paris, Gigi or Daddy Longlegs, something like that. Mm-hmm. It shows them going through a court case and saying about they have 3 judges and how they judge that law.
Well, 3 judges basically are what they use for a law court, but they have 3 judges in the appellate courts too. So what are you telling me? Their lower courts are equivalent to our appellate courts? Maybe.
Okay, well, the point being, you read a book on French law and they make this big distinction, almost like we're better than the British and the American system because we base it on substance where they're on procedure. And of course that's what you've been telling us, procedure's everything.
Yeah. When there's a bankruptcy, there really isn't any substance, even though there is in some respects. There's no way of executing it. And where we've backed that up is to go back to Scripture and show where the law is parallel to Scripture, where the Messiah came and set right all the debts. And all a judicial system is an accounting system on debts. So since the Messiah set all the debts in closure and settlement for those that accept Him, for the consideration to do that, substance doesn't really apply to them anymore. It's all in form. So are you telling me that the so-called spiritual belief system of the French isn't related back to the Messiah? They're a Catholic nation. They have to be. So they can say whatever they want and try to convince you of what's going on, but
maybe you could read one of those books translated from French into by the professors from Louisiana. Mm-hmm. Where else, right?
Yeah, because Louisiana is the only of the 50 American states that inherit their law form from the French background instead of the British, because they don't have like counties, don't they have like canons or parishes, something like that. So yeah, but you tell me. You're telling me that Louisiana isn't under the commercial code, or the similarities there too under commercial edicts and everything else. The things that have occurred in the history that have created debt and discharge or closure, and the money they're using and the source of the money all comes from the same creditors. So they're going to try to convince you there's a different law form, and there may be the history of where they've derived it, in fact, may be different. That's true, but they're indebted to the same creditors who are entitled to the same remedy and relief today as everyone else.
Meaning the international bankers?
Right.
Creditors? Okay. And like a few years ago, there was that raid down at some college, LaSalle College in Louisiana. So It's like they're much a police state as Texas.
Sure.
Can't win. And then, of course, there was this terrible raid you probably saw on TV this past weekend at the South Carolina high school. The SWAT team comes in and throws those high school students around. Jeez. What's happening? Doesn't look like...
Typical public stuff.
It's getting pretty bad.
Tests on everyone. So, any more announcements? Okay, again, I want to announce that Victoria is having one more seminar yet this year, which is the one we said last week was going to be in Seattle, Washington, close to the SeaTac airport. It's at the Comfort Inn at 19333 Pacific Highway South, November 21st, 22nd, 23rd. For information, you can call Stephen Clift at 253-445-8071. That's November 21st, 2nd, and 3rd in the year 2003, in case you're listening to this tape a year from now or something. You can also check out the website, www.angelwiththeinkwell.org. All the words run together, all lowercase. Interesting things going on. Many different feedbacks in cases. I think since Matrix 3 came out this week, we probably should mention something about that movie that winds up the Matrix series. It's kind of interesting that the Matrix series is winding up. The Lord of the Rings is winding up here within the next month. And by February of 2004, we're also dealing with the end of Kill Bill. All three of these series, it looks like, are dealing big time with the redemption theme, and it appears as when we were talking about the timing sequences in Jubilees last week, that this time frame is a very interesting time frame in history. In Matrix 3, I have yet to read any reviewer of that movie that likes that movie. Basically, they said, yeah, there's still whatever the magic in action and stuff. But most of the reviewers give it maybe 2 or 3 stars out of 4. And that's about as far as they'll go. Most of the reviewers are saying, quote, I don't understand what they're doing, but it doesn't make sense and it looks like it's not that intellectual to us. There were some comments by both of the reviewers I read that it appears as though the ending is kind of bogus, that the Wachowski brothers didn't understand what was going on and what they were doing, so they merely tacked the first ending on they came up with, which is kind of lame and doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but that's the way it is, at least in their line of thinking. So I'm sure the Wachowski brothers are smiling and laughing at all these comments. Obviously, since the people admit they don't know what's going on, at least they've been very truthful before they made their observations. In this particular film, I don't believe it'll be to anybody's shocked horror and surprise that Neo actually accomplishes his purpose of going to peace against all odds. And the most incredible portion of what's going on, again, is several little revelations in the least active parts of the movie, which again is, of course, the sections of the movie which disturb the reviewers the most because they don't believe that any of the banter and conversation going on in these lulls is very intellectual and means much of anything. We know from the second Matrix that Neo is no longer registered in the Matrix and in fact is caught between the Matrix and the people of Zion. We also know from the second movie, Matrix, that Agent Smith is no longer an agent in the Matrix. he tells Neo that, and he said he's somewhat confused. And Agent Smith indicates confusion in Matrix 2 because he says to Neo that I saw that I killed you, or you were dead, and then you came back to life, and in our last fight, you and I kind of merged and I disintegrated, and when I came back, there were portions of you and me that were merged in me. And I'm no longer an agent in the Matrix. Scripture says something about the fact that you can choose life or you can choose death. It's up to you. And it becomes extremely obvious in the Matrix 3 that Neo is choosing life and that Agent Smith is choosing death. There was another observation by one of the people I was talking to, is that Agent Smith's name of being Smith was quite interesting, because the name Smith derives from professional people, like blacksmith, goldsmith. It was a line of professional people that went into commerce, not merely just farming or herding of animals or dealing with nature. It actually was a commercial line of work that the Smiths went into. And so Agent Smith comes straight out of the Matrix, the machine world, which is in a commercial service. Agent Smith is somewhat bewildered, and you saw that in Matrix 2. But Agent Smith decided that his purpose was to annihilate Neo, and in that purpose, wherever Agent Smith went, he would actually put his fist or his hand onto the chest of the party that he was next to or up against, and that party would be encased in what started to look like a glass skin or an envelope overcoming the whole body until the whole body was covered with that outside covering, and then the covering would go away, and the party that Agent Smith had touched turned into a clone of Agent Smith. It did not make any difference whether the person that Agent Smith was dealing with was a program from the Matrix, i.e. one of the clones in the Matrix, or whether it was one of the people of Zion. No matter who it was, it appears as though Agent Smith was able to take them over and clone them into a version of Agent Smith. In the final episode, you have the climactic battle between the machine world and the people of Zion, as has been foreseen and promised. The battle and the war going on in the middle of the film takes up easily 3/4 of an hour of the film, in which the people of Zion are literally fighting a defensive battle to protect Zion from the attack of the machines. First, an attack on the receiving chamber where their military vessels come back. And then once that's breached, there's an attack on the rest of the city. And we are told that if it comes down to the fact that they're losing the city, the final place where they will line up their defense will be the temple. And the people will be inside the temple because it's more easily defended, because there is a narrow hallway or chamber leading to the temple, and it's defendable more easily against the machines that allegedly would have to go down this narrow corridor. from the beginning, everybody in Zion realizes that the military defense is probably hopeless, but that's the only hope most people believe they have. Watching Matrix 1 and particularly 2, you get the impression that there are several people on the side of Zion that has this, quote, faith or belief that someone like Neo would be able to, by hope against hope, bring the whole situation to peace and save the people of Zion without it having to be a warfare matter. And in fact, that's what it comes down to in the final story. That Neo has had contact with the Oracle, that the Oracle has indicated to Neo that what he must do is he must himself go to the heart of the enemy, to the machine city, if there is going to be any chance whatsoever of bringing peace and stopping the annihilation of Zion and maybe, quote, the end of the world, including the machine world. The military defense powers for Zion are absolutely against Neo taking a vessel which could be used in the defense of the city and taking it to the enemy capital, because there is no logic whatsoever that would suggest that if Neo goes right into the heart of the enemy at the time that the enemy is attacking Zion, that they won't destroy his vessel and him in it before he even gets anywhere close to the city to accomplish anything. The Oracle in the third film proves to be a prominent character once again. And what was interesting as far as the filming of Matrix 3 was that the actress woman who played the part of the Oracle in the Matrix 1 and 2 happened to die. She happened to pass away in real life before she filmed her parts for the movie Matrix 3. And since she is such a predominant character, the story really could not be wound up without bringing in an oracle in terms of providing that side of the story in terms of logic to finish up the sequence. I thought it was quite interesting how they rewrote a portion of the facts of the film to suggest to the audience why the visual characterization of the Oracle, the person that played that part, was physically different, but nevertheless the same Oracle for the story. And what they basically did is suggested that because the Oracle had taken a part in assisting Neo, who was one of the people of Zion, that the Merovingian was very, very upset about the Oracle, who was herself a computer program, assisting someone from the Zion people. And because of that, it was suggested that there was retaliation on that Oracle program in the Matrix, but that nevertheless the program was regenerated and had a different physical appearance, but nevertheless was basically the same. And the Oracle says to the characters from Zion in the third movie that even though I may appear different, it's up to you whether or not you want to believe that I'm still the Oracle, that I'm going to be giving you information that you can use, and whether or not you will trust what I'm saying to you or not. The Oracle is a prominent part. The final scene in the movie is not really an end as much as it is a beginning. In the end, you have peace between the machine world and the people of Zion. There is no longer a war. You have three characters in the final scene. All three of those characters either are still or have been programs in the Matrix at one time. And one of those characters says to another character, it appears as though you have the peace that it appeared as though you wanted. That character responds, yes, we have. The other character suggests, but how long do you think that the liberty of the people of Zion will last? And the response is, as long as they can keep the peace. Which is about the same thing that was asked of our founding fathers coming out of the Constitutional Convention. How long do you believe you will be able to keep the republic? As long as you understand what it is and can keep it. We've given you a republic if you can keep it. There is several new characters in the third matrix. One of them happens to be like a train conductor. Train master. That was his title. The train master ran a program in the matrix which was extremely interesting. In the Matrix 3, you are told that the Merovingian is more powerful, and we were led to even believe in the second Matrix. You were told that if anything is going to get done at all with regard basically to the machine world, that you've got to get approval from the Merovingian. It's obvious that the Merovingian is almost in the capacity of a Secretary of State that exists in our law form. He appears to be the party that intercedes between the matrix government itself, the fiction, and the outside world. And since anything that was going to be done had to be noticed to and approved by the Merovingian, or at least noticed to the Merovingian, and he did not object to it, it was necessary for Neo to try to go to and contact the Merovingian. We are told once again that Neo is suspended between the world of fiction and the world of Zion. And as far as the Merovingian was concerned, that's exactly where he wanted Neo, because he presumed and assumed that Neo would not be able to help the people of Zion or harm the Matrix if he was left in that no man's zone between both entities. It turns out that third parties had to attempt to intercede for Neo, i.e., we've been teaching you can't plead your own case many times. When it comes to the world of fiction, you need to have intercessors in your behalf go to the world of fiction in order to get a remedy. Neo was placed in this physical area that looked like a subway station with tracks coming in and going out of the subway station. At first it appeared as though he was alone, and he was told that he was waiting for a train. And for him to get any remedy to achieve anything to stop the war, he had to be able to get on that train and go to the Merovingian. As he was waiting in the train station, this young girl kind of walks onto the platform too. Other than that, the train station appears entirely vacant or empty. No one is there. And the little girl has a nice conversation with Neo, very calm, seems to understand that Neo is someone to be admired and she respects him, but nevertheless she's very cautious. Neo talks to her and asks her what she's doing, and it turns out that she also is waiting for the train and is supposed to get on the train, and she has been informed that the Merovingian is going to let her leave the Matrix. She's going to be the last man out, so to speak, the last one to obtain their freedom prior to the fall of the Zion people that the machine world is attacking. When she respectfully leaves Neo and goes around the corner, Neo follows her and is amazed to see that her mother and father are also quietly waiting at the train station. They have a conversation, and the nationality of the mother and father are like Indian. And the father is very humble and very gracious, also seems to know who Neo is, and tells Neo that they admire him for what he's doing with the people of Zion. His wife, however, is very cautious, very conservative, and is charging her husband not to speak to Neo and to be quiet lest they get in any kind of trouble with the machine world, because she also knows who Neo is. Nevertheless, her husband says we must be honorable and we must be friendly and talk to him. They're not going to get into trouble doing that. There is a conversation goes back and forth between the father and Neo, which is extremely interesting. Neo asks what they were doing there, and the father said that they get in a discussion of love. And Neo finds that particularly interesting, considering the fact that he asked the father and the mother if in fact they weren't programs in the Matrix. And they said, yes, we are. And when Neo said, what are you doing here? The father started a discussion about love. And Neo looked in amazement at the father being a program from the Matrix, almost to the question like, what does artificial entities, programs stuck in the Matrix know about love? And the discussion coming back was, love is universal. And that my wife and I have such love for our daughter. Then he asked Neo, if you understood love, what is there that you would not do for someone you loved? And when Neo responded basically that love means that you would do anything for the one you loved, the father said, well, the mother and I decided that we loved our daughter so much that we wanted her to have something that we did not have, which is freedom and liberty. And that the only way we saw we would be able to give that to our daughter is literally to go to the Merovingian and negotiate her liberty, which we did. And we're here at this station, which is a staging place between the worlds, for the purpose of putting our daughter on the train so that she will be like the last man out of town before all hell breaks loose. She will be the last of those that are given their freedom. And Neo kind of questions him like the Merovingian did that, because remember, the Merovingian, Secretary of State, does nothing for anyone unless consideration is returned to him equal to the consideration that he's willing to provide. And so the discussion went forth between the father and Neo, suggesting that Both the father and the mother were extraordinary security programs and high-ranking programs in the Matrix, and that they promised the Merovingian that they would faithfully serve the Matrix forever if the Merovingian would grant their daughter liberty. And with the cross consideration, the Merovingian agreed to that. And the father said to Neo that the mother and father would get on the train when it arrived, because the Merovingian allowed them to escort their daughter until she was given her freedom, and then the mother and father would be returned to the Matrix. And Neo said, well, fine, I'm getting on the train also. I wish you people well. When the train arrived, the train master came out of the train, knew the little girl and her parents, and allowed them entry. When Neo went to get on the train master said, you're not going anyplace. Neo requested to go on to the train, and the train master said, we know who you are. The Merovingian doesn't want you on that train. You're not going. To which Neo basically said, I am going. To which the train master basically said to him, I am the God of this program, and no one is more powerful than me. And if I say you're not going, you're not going. To which Neo attempted to use force to get on the train, and the train master literally put him against the wall, closed the door, and the train left. Neo decided there's got to be an alternative way of doing this. So he jumped from the platform down onto the track and looked in the direction in which the train had departed. And he decides, okay, if I can't ride the train, I'll follow the track. So he went out the tunnel in the direction of the train, and about like 5 seconds later you saw him run back in the other entrance that the train had come from. He immediately understood that the program was a loop unless you had the ability to open the loop. And at that stage of the game, he had no ability to leave the station without help from third parties. So this looping program with this train master that was basically authorized by the Merovingian or the Secretary of State, it would appear as though the train master was like a powerful U.S. Marshal that had authority over everyone else for every reason to carry out whatever the orders were from the Secretary of State with regard to this law form. So you're seeing more and more metaphors and parables of what's going down in our system in this third matrix. And of course it's those little scenes that don't have so many special effects and run up all kinds of action that most of the critics don't understand what's going on and view this as just being nonsensical banter between the parties. It is truly an incredible film because Neo eventually decides that between Agent Smith and himself, there is no ability of either party to win. It is like Neo is generating more power and more knowledge all the time. And as he grows in power and knowledge, so does Agent Smith, not to mention the fact that Smith is replicating many times over. And as much as they come together, Agent Smith is bound to destroy Neo, and Neo's only interest is in defensively preventing Agent Smith from destroying him if Agent Smith could. And as powerful as they get, they always appear to fight each other to a draw. Neither one of them can prevail. And as time goes by, the remedy for the peace finally is a plan which comes into Neo's understanding. And what he does in order to generate the peace is when the oracle told them that he had to go to the capital of the machine city, Neo asked the oracle, and once I get there, what do I do? And the oracle says, I cannot give you an answer. And Neo says, you cannot or will not. And she says, I cannot. She said, basically, remember when I told you that we do not understand the choices that we have to make beyond what we know or understand?